Hey everybody, my name is Mike Comp. I'm the Executive Director at the Conservation Technology Information Center. At CTIC, we work to promote and champion economic and environmentally viable conservation agricultural systems. We pride ourselves at bringing people together from across agriculture and conservation to have conversations about these systems and really promote and champion conservation ag. Today we have a great program for you in light of all the difficulties this year related to the COVID-19 pandemic. With that, we're very thankful for all the folks from ASA and their hard work and giving us an opportunity to work here today. We had some great sponsors for this effort, including John Deere, the Mosaic Company, and Bayer Crop Science. Thank you to them for putting that together. As you're watching this video, I encourage you to just sit back, think about the lessons and the stories that folks are bringing forward, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us following the presentation to learn more about what we do. Thanks.
I'm Kenneth Vollmer from Eden, Ohio. I married my wife. She was from Eden. I'm originally from Edgerton, Ohio, which is 10 miles down the road. My wife and I bought 30 acres, which 15 of it was tillable, the rest was woods. That was the first farm we bought together. We're now farming right close to 1,000 acres.
So I'm Carrie Vollmer and Sanders, and we live just across the line from Eden, Ohio. We live in Angola, Indiana, and we farm obviously with my parents. Ryan and I, we started farming just after our second son was born in 2008. We bought our first farm, and that was 53 acres, 53 tillable acres. So this year we picked up another farm, so we have 375 acres. Something that's really cool that just happened within the last couple of years is we were able to buy a farm that has been in Ryan's family for, well, at that time, 148 years. And so since we've owned it, it's been in the family for 150 years. And that was pretty awesome.
To protect that long legacy, as farmers, as wildlife lovers, as hunters, as generations on that land, conservation has always been a major focus for the family.
Back when I was growing up, we milked cows and had pasture. And there was also an open ditch running through there, small creek. But that was always the pasture ground. And that was, of course, grass and clover and whatever out there. But the cows always grazed that, and it filtered the water. And also we wasn't putting on the fertilizer that we are incorporating today. But today I have filter strips along the open ditches. They're probably 15, 20 foot wide on each side of the ditch. Just trying to take care of the farm ground and hopefully leave it in a little better shape than what I got it in.
In addition to those buffer strips, conservation on the Vollmers and Sanders farms includes a wide range of practices, from two-stage ditches to following the 4 R's of nutrient stewardship, no-tilling, using variable rate technology to reduce phosphorus loading, adding wheat into their crop rotation, planting cover crops, and constantly exploring new conservation systems.
When you think of yourself as a farmer, you think of yourself as a steward of the land. And it's not just of the land, it's also of the water that hits your land. And that water is turning into drinking water, in our case, for the city of Toledo, for the city of Defiance. And Fort Wayne. What we do on our land matters to a lot of other people. And so farmers in our area, farmers everywhere, need to know that there is practices that we can do that's going to help that. I think at first when we were seeing there was issues in Lake Erie, it was like, yeah, but what are we going to do? Like, just tell us what we can do differently and we'll change that. And there are some practices that have been proven that we know if you incorporate your phosphorus, it's not going to get to the tile lines as fast. They know if you put cover crops on or add wheat to the rotation or have roots growing in your soil, there's going to be a lot less erosion, a lot less sediment getting into the streams. If you're following the 4 R's, if you're applying your fertilizer when you need to and the amount that you need to, it's going to keep it out of the streams. So there's a lot. I think at first people were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And now, thanks to a lot of field days, a lot of communication just internally within the ag system, there has been a lot of shift in practices. And it is our responsibility to do what we can.
Clint Nestor, the family's certified crop advisor, is also guided by a strong conservation ethic and by the sense that good conservation is also good business.
I would really say that conservation is probably one of our core values, I guess, if you had to put that into terms. We work on about 200,000 acres, and most of that is right in the Western Lake Erie Basin, which is kind of a hot ticket item right now. So we kind of really preach the 4 R's to our growers, mainly because we want our customers to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So, and on that note, I guess, the good thing for farmers is that conservation and stewardship, in most cases, fit right in with economics. So if we're being responsible with our nutrients and doing the right thing, in general, they're probably saving some dollars down the road too.
Ryan Sanders, who's also a certified crop advisor, agrees.
If you're a farmer, you need to, or you already inherently want to maximize your production with minimal input. Sometimes we're adding things to the mix with cover crops and so on and so forth. If you want to categorize them as conservation practices, that's fine, but they're also tools for us to use, not necessarily just a conservation practice, but a tool to help help us improve the soil, use things in a more efficient manner, and also help maximize yield.
Though he's a CCA himself, Ryan says Clint's expertise and the expertise of certified crop advisors like him are important from the standpoints of both conservation and business.
Yeah, I could probably do it on my own, but I don't have the technology. I don't have the right equipment. I don't have the right technology or the way to interpret it. And it's a very big key value for us to have folks like Clint and Nestor's involved to help us make the right call. And, we also use advisors for, everybody's got like financial advisors probably, right? Everybody has people that they want to talk to about investments, and we're making big investments every year in the soil, and you better have some kind of advice that you've got to go with.
The family has learned some lessons from the past, starting with an old-fashioned appreciation of biodiversity.
This farming is kind of coming full circle. When I was younger, you had milk cows, you had hogs, you raised oats, wheat, and corn. You had your pasture ground. When you took your wheat off, or before you even took your wheat off, you spread urea out on the field in the spring for nitrogen for the wheat. Along with that, at that time we called it plow down. That was your clovers. You could either plow it down in the fall or leave it go to the next year, make hay off of it for the livestock. So with your cover crops and everything, I feel with the oats and the wheat, I feel we're coming full circle, because you had your corn stalks out there for erosion. You had the clover and the wheat and the oats that we planted. You had a root system there that would stabilize the soils and help prevent the runoff.
And I think that's what some of the cover crops are doing, though, right? Is like we don't have the markets to have oats here. We don't have the markets for all that diversity of the cropping system that we used to have. So when we can add in the cover crops in the fall and keep those roots there, and keep the soil there, and it does in some regards what used to happen with the longer term rotations, and then we get the diverse roots. We've got more nitrogen being fixed because you're putting in back those legumes. So even though we might not be able to grow 5 or 6 different types of crops in a crop rotation, we do kind of get those crops in because of the cover crop cycle, planting them in the fall.
Farming is a commitment, says Kenny. So is conservation. Ryan points out that there are failures along the way to success.
Being able to incorporate cover crops into the rotation of things is difficult. So we've had varying different success with aerial seeding, sometimes really stellar, other times really terrible. It really does boil down to you got to take, you got to use information that's in front of you, whether you're looking at forecasts, are we going to get some rain? Timing on some of those aerial applications is very critical, catching a rain to make some of that happen. And what we've found too is if if that doesn't happen, you're better off to not send the planes and wait for a better opportunity to do it different. And so the flexibility that you need to have, or sometimes patience has never really been one of my key strengths, and patience is something that is really tried when you need to incorporate some of these cover crops and that kind of things in.
Clint Nestor says Carrie and Ryan's Soil Health Partnership plot has been a great lesson not just in conservation systems, but in taking the long view.
I can say what we've learned probably from that plot the most is how slow this process can be. For probably the first 3 years, we really couldn't find anything to say that the cover crop was making a positive impact on that farm. Now we thought, and I'm still confident that it was doing good things for the soil, but when it came to yield and even soil test levels, we really didn't see much of a response. Now that we're 5 into our 6th year, we have started to see organic matters kind of come up in those cover crop strips. And I think we've seen yield do that also. It's not enough that you can pin it every crop every year, but I think we can confidently say now that we've seen a yield increase where those cover crop strips were. And I guess I really have to attribute it to the organic matter levels.
It takes commitment, experimentation, and patience to implement conservation practices. But what does it take to make conservation stick?
So I have to tell you, the first science fair project that I can remember, I was in 7th grade, and it was manure management. And I remember then Dad talking about, like, well, Carrie, if you think about where we spread manure, we've got to get it on land that has, at that time it was hay or just after wheat, because we don't want the manure to move. And like, how many parents talk to their kids about manure management in that way, right, when you're in middle school? So when you think about conservation and the ethic for the next generation, I think about, like, the same conversations that my dad and mom had in front of us girls. Ryan and I are having similar conservation conversations in front of our boys. So we talk about the soil, we take them with us when we go look at the fields. So to get them thinking about it, I have no idea what will stick and what won't stick, but I think it's the continuous conversation about it that, this is important, and what we do on our land will impact not just us, but people downstream that are drinking the water. And if it's on our farm, it's going to impact them when they own the land in the future. So I don't know what is going to stick. I don't know what's going to reach them the best, but I do know that continually having those conversations is something that I've experienced has been really helpful. So I hope they find the same thing.